Building a business can be very rewarding, but it can also be very lonely. Many business owners lack a trusted group of peers who understand the challenges and stress that comes with the leadership. My guest today is a founder of an organization that creates confidential peer advisory groups for business owners and executives, and we will discuss how to approach that problem. Welcome to Business Beyond You, the one-stop hub for insights, conversations, and perspectives business owners need to build businesses that last beyond them. I'm Sara Vaziri, M&A advisor, and today my guest is Ric Franzi, the CEO and founder of REF Orange County and Inland Empire. Ric, welcome to Business Beyond You.
Sarah, thank you for having me as a guest. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, so first of all, tell us exactly what inspired you to join REF and buy their franchise, you said, in Orange County. Tell us more about that part of the story.
Well, it goes back to when my last corporate job. I was president of a manufacturing company, which was a wholly owned subsidiary of a very large company by the name of Delphi. The business unit that I ran was Delphi Connection Systems, and I was the president. And I'd never been the president before, but I always aspired to be the boss throughout my corporate career. And so when I got that position, I very quickly realized it was different than any other job that I'd ever had. And I was starting to think that I needed to get some outside input, some help from people that might have walked the path that I'm currently walking. I had an MBA from Pepperdine. I had a storied career, all that, but this job was different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't even know peer groups like I now lead existed, but I went on a search. I found a group. I joined the group. I got a lot of value from being in the community with other business owners and presidents and CEOs. And one day we were at a retreat in beautiful Santa Barbara, and I had an epiphany. I was like, wow, I think I'd rather do what the leader was doing. His name was Bob Grable, than what I'm doing back at the corporate office. So after the retreat was over, I went home. I sat with my wife and I said, I think I found the job that would be the career that I would give up the corporate career for. She said, it makes perfect sense. So I went and I told my boss I had decided to leave Delphi. And over the next 6 months, we transitioned me out of Delphi and I launched REF Orange County.
Wow, that was quite a story. I have never heard something like that. Okay, so tell us a little bit about this REF. What is it exactly?
Running a business of any size is hard. I think starting a business from scratch is the hardest thing to do. For those founders out there, congratulations, because you've accomplished something that is really a challenge in any economy. But business never gets easy. And as you continue to scale and grow, you encounter challenges you haven't encountered before: scale, size, new customers, more people. And it's really valuable to be with people who have experienced it either previously or are currently going through it. So one, you realize, hey, these problems aren't just mine. And two, you get perspective from people who are in the real world, in today's environment, leading businesses, facing the same type of opportunities and challenges, and doing it their way, which can be really beneficial to help you to brainstorm the options that may be available to you, especially in areas where you haven't seen it before. It's nice to get people's experience and background. I say in business, experience is the best teacher, but
Mhm.
some lessons are best learned vicariously through the experiences of peers.
But any business owner, they have a lot of like accountants, CPA, lawyers, consultants, employees around them. So why can't those people solve the problem? What is different about these groups that you have?
I believe every business owner, every entrepreneur should have the best support system they can afford. The best accountant, the best business broker, the best partners, and leverage that resource as much as possible. But there are times when the situation is unique, or I also know that regardless of the quality of your employees and your suppliers, there's a vested interest that each and every one of them have in their working relationship with the business owner. It's sort of like, I don't want to lose my job, or I'd like to keep you as a customer. And sometimes the advice that you might get from them goes through that final filter of, how will this affect my relationship with this person? In a peer group, we don't do business between members. They're non-competitive. It's confidential. And so the advice that is given is experience-based and has no other ulterior motive other than to try to help that person solve the problem or take advantage of the opportunity. It's kind of the cleanest version of getting advice from peers that you can find, because there's no other reason for people to provide advice and insight other than they want to help you.
So for somebody who is not familiar, what exactly these peer groups work? You bring in people who are business owner or executive from fields that are not competitors, and you have monthly meeting. How does it exactly work?
So the industry is broad and very differentiated. And I would suggest to anyone listening to our show at any point now or in the future, if you haven't found your tribe, your peer group, you should consider doing that. We are sort of the output of the 5 people we spend the most amount of time with. And so if you can find a peer group, a tribe that are leading you in a direction of growth, I highly encourage that. The ref model is unique in that we are a half day, once a month meeting. It's a board meeting for my members. Many of them do not have an outside formal board of advisors. They have no one that they report to. They frankly are the boss. The good news is they're the boss. The bad news is all the decisions end up with them and they have to make them. And many times they're not the easy decisions to be made. So we bring them together, a very structured environment, give them education, because these people are lifelong learners. They're open to new ideas. They're willing to hear a diversity of thought. They relish the fact that many times the advice they give is diametrically opposed from different people's experiences, and they get to figure out which one makes the most sense for their business. We have them between 8 to 12 to 15 members. The foundation for the session each month is what we call in REF, which is a global organization with about 3,000 members, a case. A case is a business challenge or an opportunity that the member would like to get the peers input on, inside experience. And we process that in many different ways, but it's all confidential. And about 70% of the time, they're business topics. It's a family business. My brother isn't performing. I need to either demote him or fire him. And it's going to make Thanksgiving very strange, because my parents won't probably understand why I'm not keeping my brother in the business. Might be an example of the type of topic that a member might bring. That is a topic that members have brought in the past. And so that's a place where they know they can speak freely and it's not going to leave the room.
So I is it correct that, like, public companies, there is a board of director that the CEO goes there and talk and get their opinion? You are trying to kind of copy that in the small business world, correct?
Yes, nonprofits, similar sized nonprofits, have an external board, and the executive director is answering to that board from a strategy perspective and from a performance perspective. Many privately held businesses of the same size don't have that advantage, don't have that opportunity to have a group of smart people get around the table and really want to help them take their business to the next level. And that's what we do. That's what this industry does, this peer advisory industry. And that's what I particularly focus on here at Ref Orange County Inland Empire.
And you make sure that they are not competing with each other, so whatever they discuss is not affecting the other person's business.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly true. Because I mean, you many times there's conversations about acquisitions and divestitures, things you don't want your competition to know, margin compression, tariff challenges. There's been a lot of issues. There always is a lot of issues for business owners. So not having anybody in the room that you would not want to hear what you're about to talk about is really important. And that's what we do as the business partner. We curate the groups to make sure we have true peers sitting around the table.
So what kind of industry or size would be a good target for using your groups? Is it like when they start growing the business, at what stage do they become really a good target to join your group?
There is a tuition of $1,000 a month to be in the group. So the business needs to be able to cash flow that. And generally what we have found is they've been in business for 5 or 6 years. They've achieved, several $1 million in revenue. All of a sudden now it's a different business. They may be to the point, some of them, where they don't know all their employees' names because they've grown that fast or that far. And so at 5 million, the business seems to be different than it was, and it requires a little difference out of the owner. At 10 million, there's another change. So there's these break points where at some point the business feels almost foreign to the owner, and they can use some help from the outside. And they need to be able to be away from the business for a half a day once a month. I mean, it's like 4% of their work month. It's not insignificant amount of time, but it's the time where I tell them you can work on your business, not in your business. You're an operator for 96% of the time, but for 4%, you're going to be the CEO, strategist, talking about the future and growth.
And you bring all of those tell us a little bit about the kind of discussions you have in this group. Let's say, walk me through one of your sample meetings, for example.
So we start with breakfast. I'm Italian, and so I was always raised, mangia, nourish, and that's a part of what we do. We have a nice breakfast catered for the members who want it, and the coffee and things to get them started, and also to break the pattern of what they normally do when they start their workday. And we ask each member to provide just a quick update off of what's happened since the last time we were together. So a brief just reset of what's happened in my life you should know about, both business and personal, because a business owner, CEO shows up, but a mom or a dad or a daughter, that's who really is there, the full person. And then we'll have an educational component, which in ref we call an expert insight. And these are thought leaders in fields that the business owner needs to know a little bit more about. And it runs the gambit from employment law to acquisitions to taxation to human relations to business brokers who are looking for those members that are looking to exit their business someday. All members or business owners should be thinking about exiting their business. They should try to do that as far in advance as possible. So we try to remind them of best practices, if you will. And after the educational component, the expert insight, that's when we open up the table to cases. And I know in advance, because we have a format of who has a case, and then we spend the time necessary to discuss what is on the member's mind and provide unfiltered feedback that might help them in making a decision or charting a course. And then at the end, we just kind of go around the table and make sure we're all good. One of the things that surprises new members is how they feel when the meeting's over. Because it's so different, many of them tell me, I have energy that I didn't have when I came in the room. I'm feeling better leaving now than I did when I'm so glad I didn't listen to that little voice on my shoulder that said, oh, you have so much to do at work, you can't go to the peer group this morning, because I got something here I can't get anywhere else.
And I guess that the type, or I would say the owners you put together in a group usually are in a certain size together, or certain, how do you decide about the mixture of people in one group?
That's a great point, because it's really the degrees of freedom you have with to make the decisions and take the resources available to you. So we do try to band them by scale to some point, but unfortunately, if you're running a $5 million company, depending on the industry, you may have many of the same challenges that a $15 million, $30 million company has. You just may not have the capital or the cash flow that can make some of the changes that you need, but you can certainly learn from your smaller and bigger. Well, that's what surprises me too. And when my experience, because I was running about $100 million manufacturing company, and many of the companies in my group were smaller than I was. And you think, well, you're running a $100 million company with N number of employees. What are you going to learn from a $5 million manufacturing company? I learned so much about how much they knew about their business, that I was at a very high level, that I actually went back and structured my business at Delphi before I left into smaller, discrete business lines, so that we could get closer to the kind of knowledge that my peers in my peer group had about their business. Because at 5 or 10 million, they really had a handle on the business. At 100 million, I felt like, man, I'm missing something. It's, it's there's too much going on that I'm missing.
So what you're saying is that even a business that has a $20 million sales can learn something from a person who has a $5 million because of those similarities in the business challenges, I would say.
Yeah, and the kind of questions that they ask that they expect the person to know that maybe a little larger they don't know. So then that gives that member a chance to go back and ask those questions that
Mhm.
if they were closer to the business, they might have known to
Nice.
ask about the group.
Nice. So there are a lot of times that business owners think that there is a lot of weight on their shoulders. They're carrying a lot of weight. What kind of advice you have for these owners?
If there's one universal feeling, it's the feeling of isolation, loneliness at the top of the organization. And sometimes you think the bigger the business, the more isolated the CEO might be, or the bigger the business, the less isolated the CEO might be because they have more resources at her disposal. But there's only one of you, so by virtue of that fact, you're isolated. We do a thought exercise with members too. The question is, how big does your company have to be before the conversation of your employees is different than when you're in the room than when you're not in the room? Like, how big do you think it has to be before there's sort of that, you're the boss and we're not? And the experience that I have and the answer that I believe is true is three. You as the founder and two other people, all of a sudden, if they're not partners or co-owners or co-founders, you have two employees. Guess what? When you're not in the room, those two people are talking as peers and you're no longer their peer because you're their boss.
Hmm. Hmm. That's interesting. So you have Ref Orange County and Inland Empire.
Yes, we're growing.
Tell me about that.
So I started with Ref in 2007. I looked at a number of different companies in this industry, and
Hmm.
I chose Ref because I liked the culture of the organization. I met a number of the peer franchisees, and I felt I wanted to be with successful business owners and entrepreneurs, and that's what I found in the Ref community here in the US. And so I've been leading groups here in Orange County since then. And then last year, my peer business partner in the Inland Empire had decided to retire from doing this business. And he asked if I would take over his organization in the Inland Empire. And I had known about it because he's kind of been my mentor. He's been in a little bit longer. And I gladly accepted the opportunity. I met with the community. We all got along. So last year, I increased my capacity from Orange County to the Inland Empire. And I added in Orange County to help me facilitate the workload, what we call in Ref a forum leader. He's a 1099 contractor who leads one of the groups independently of me. He's been a member of mine since 2016. His name is Craig Cook. He's a successful entrepreneur who scaled over 20 plus years a digital marketing agency, sold it to a strategic acquirer, did the earnout thing, decided he was on his next chapter, and he got so much value from being a member of Ref that he wanted to build his own group, specifically targeting entrepreneurs who want to sort of have his journey, build a successful business, and get your little pot of gold when you exit.
Nice. So anybody who has a business either in Orange County or in Inland Empire, they can join one of your groups.
They can apply to join, and then we go through a process. Not everyone is a fit for what we do. You
Okay.
have to you have to be able to get away from your business. You have to want to come. It's a contact sport, Sarah. You have to be willing to engage with the members, and you
Hmm.
have to be willing to hear people tell you something different than what you
What do you
want to
think?
hear. Yeah, and not every successful entrepreneur, believes they need to be
Exactly.
challenged that way.
Exactly. That's awesome. Rick, thank you so much for joining us. For our audience, please tell us how exactly they can reach out to you. What is your contact information? And of course, we'll add it under the video as well.
Thank you. So you can call me or text me 949-887-4104. I answer my own phone, and I even answer phone numbers I don't recognize because it might be somebody who listened to your show. It's always interesting to see who's on the end of those calls. My website is my name, Ric, R-I-C, Franzi, Franzi.com. And on ricfranzi.com, there's stuff that I do. I've written some books. I too have been a podcaster for a while, but there's a lot on the ref experience and the peer groups that I lead. So the best two ways to do that would be to call me, text me, check my website out. And if you want to send me an email, I'll read those too. It's my first initial R, last name Franzi, Franzi, at ref.global.
Nice. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that we can talk again in the future.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for the time. Appreciate the opportunity.
Sure.